Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. Please excuse the background noise. There might be some distractions. I'm downstairs in a hotel lobby while my roommate is getting dressed upstairs, and there might be some background noise and distractions, and as I'm out of town on an assignment, which I'll discuss with you at a later point. But I want to talk to you today about angels. And the book of Hebrews talks to us about, be careful when entertaining strangers because some might entertain angels unaware. And in Psalms 91, verse 11, it talks to us about that God will charge his angels to watch over us in all our ways. And I just want to share with you a few things that's occurred in my life that I know that angels were involved in our life. And as late as yesterday, something miraculous took place. And so stay tuned and listen to the entire video, and you'll hear about what took place yesterday. But one of the first things I want to share with you was, back in the early 90s, my husband and I, we owned a 1988 Nissan. And it was just a little car, and we didn't have snow tires or anything like that. And he was coming back from Toronto, and we live in the outside Toronto, about an hour away outside east of Toronto. And there was a terrible snowstorm that he got caught in. And it was a whiteout. You couldn't see anything for miles or see anything in front of you. And anyways, I remember him calling me ahead of time because we didn't have cell phones back in those days. And he called me ahead of time and said that, the roads are really bad. He's going to take his time and make his way in. And he started to venture in, and it got so bad he couldn't see. And I remember he called me from a payphone and told me, how bad it really was. And I said, I'll pray for you. And so I prayed, and I said, God, just cause your angels to watch over him and to bring him safely home. He came home, long story short, he came home, and he said to me at one point that this car just pulled up in front of him and followed him and directed him all the way into where we lived, basically into a clearing. And there was a service station, and the car pulled in and he pulled in behind. And when the gentleman got out, the gentleman was had this white beard, and a white dog came out after him. And he said there was this glow. He goes, Carla, I believe that was an angel. So then I told him, that I had prayed for an angel to guide him in. And he said, and after the gentleman looked at him, and then he looked at the gentleman, and then the gentleman got in the car with the dog, and then he just looked, and he had vanished, literally vanished. So I said, I knew that was an encounter with an angel. Another time, my husband was going into a Tim Hortons, and he was in need of a sum of money, and he had to have that money. And he walked into a Tim Hortons that morning, and a young man walked in behind him, and he said to him, don't worry, the money that you need, you're going to have it by the end of today. And sure enough, he got the money that he needed by the end of that day. Now, was that a coincidence, or was that an angel? All right, and so now I'm going to tell you a story about myself. I was in a mall one day, and this gentleman came up to me out of nowhere, and he started to tell me all these things about what God was going to use me to do. And then I looked up, and he vanished. He was gone out of nowhere. And quickly, I want to share with you what took place yesterday. So we're en route back from Calgary, and we're driving towards Thunder Bay. And there's a long stretch from Winnipeg to Thunder Bay, and it's over 500 kilometers. And it's pitch dark. There's no service stations along that route, and it's in the mountains. And so I was driving along, and I was only doing, because there was snow, and the roads were terrible. So I was doing about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, really slow. And at some point, I decided, to start to pick up a little speed and do about 60 kilometers per hour. At which point, I hit black ice, and the car went in a tailspin, and it spun around and around at least twice, went to the opposite side of the road, and where the oncoming traffic is, over to the edge of a cliff, and then it spun back into the center, and the passenger that was with me started pulling my driver's arm, screaming and hitting me, and at which point I gave up. I literally gave up, and I felt the car just maneuver itself and just turned around on its own and went right back on the side where we're supposed to be driving and just stood there calmly. I'm telling you, I did nothing to move that car because I was in shock because partly because of what had occurred, and the fact that I had totally lost control and the passenger was pulling on my arm and hitting my arm in shock. And I knew in that moment when the car was moving and maneuvering over to the other side, I knew something had taken over. But I was frozen and stunned. And it wasn't until afterwards when I regained consciousness or whatever it was, snapped back to it, that I realized, that was God's angels himself that maneuvered that vehicle and brought that vehicle safely back to the direction that we were going. And the funny thing about that, well, it's not funny. Something even more miraculous was, or just as miraculous, is that road is constantly with trucks on both sides. And at that moment, nothing was coming, nothing. And even while I was lying in my in the hotel room this morning, I started to shed a tear because I just realized the love of God and how much He's watching over us, and that the scriptures tell us that He sets His angels to watch over us. And I'm just amazed at the times that God has showed up in my life and that God has been there for me. And He loves us and He's there for us, and He will charge His angels to watch over you. And I just want you to know that, to be encouraged today and know that God is for you and that no weapon formed against you will prosper. And He will set His angels over your life and over you. And I am so thankful that, I have a relationship with God. And I just pray that, everyone that's listening to this, I can't even describe what took place last night, but I know that it was the angels of God that brought that car back into order. And I give God thanks and praise for that. And so thank you so much for watching. I will be posting this earlier than usual as I'm en route back to Toronto area, and I'm still in the Thunder Bay area. And so I won't have Wi-Fi to post this video. So I'm going to post it now before I leave this hotel. But thanks so much for watching. And as always, keep your sights on the things that are eternal, for it's in the eternal things that we can move beyond the walls.